Oh,
All right.
yeah.
Okay, so let's begin. We welcome to Chodesh virtual portal, and today we are bringing what we normally do during the evening service to you at home, and we aren't bringing the actual prayer service to our virtual portal because, of course, your prayer at home is personal, and you can't virtualize the experience of being in community. And so what we really want to do is focus on the aspects of Jewish life that you really can virtualize, which is Torah study and the shared, the sharing of the quest of learning that we can do virtually, because each of us will absorb and learn and share ideas together, and that's real, and that's something that can transcend our physical separation at this time. But on the prayer, on the other hand, is something that's much more experiential, in the sense that the idea of being together in the communal space is something for itself, and the experience of prayer as an individual is a separate matter. Okay, let's begin. It's customary in between the mincha and Mariv service, in between the afternoon and evening service, that we study Ein Yaakov. It is the mystical and mythical teachings of Talmud, and these are excerpts from the Talmud that deal with ethical, philosophical, and mystical questions. The Talmud Brachot opens with a discussion around what is the right time to pray, to read the nighttime Shema. Me'emasai korin as Shema be'arvin. And the Mishnah says, Misha she'hakohanim nichnasim le'echol b'trumason ad sof hashmura harishona. The correct time to read the nighttime Shema is from the time that the priests come in to eat of the teruma, of the sacred foods that are dedicated to Kohanim, until the end of the first watch. These are the words of Rabbi Eliezer, and the sages say, V'chachamim omrim ad chatzos. The sages say that it doesn't go until the first watch, it goes until midnight. Now, we'll deal specifically with the first line of the Mishnah today. When is it the time to read the nighttime Shema? Essentially, when is it the time to say the evening prayers, the Mariv? And the Mishnah says the right time to say the evening prayers is from the time the priests come in to eat their sacred food. What is that? The Talmud asks, Michti, Emas, Kohanim, Koachli betruma. When do the priests eat that? You told me a anecdotal thing, but you didn't say a time. I want to know a time on the clock. Well, says the Talmud, I'll answer you. It is Misha'as Tzeisa Kochavim. This is from the time that the stars come out. And that tells us that the right time to pray the nighttime prayer is night, when the stars come out. So the rabbis ask, if that's the case, why refer to the priests eating sacred foods? Rather, just say, Me'emasai korin Shema be'arvin mitzeis hakochavim. When do we read the nighttime Shema? From the time the stars come out. And the Talmud explains, Milsa agav urcha kamash balan. The rabbis, the Mishnah is teaching us another matter along the way. So just before we go to explain that, we have to understand, what does it mean that the priests come in to eat their teruma, to eat their sacred foods? So the custom of washing our hands before bread comes from the practice of Kohanim, of priests, who most of the bread they would eat would be gifts from their fellow Jews, which was considered sacred and had to be eaten in the state of ritual purity. And so there are different degrees of ritual purity. One is taras haguf, the purity of the body, which involves going to the mikveh, immersing oneself in a ritual bath. The other is taras hayadayim, the cleansing of the hands. which is for a lesser degree of ritual impurity. So we still observe, in solidarity with Kohanim, with the priest, we still observe the washing of hands before eating bread to remember how the Kohanim would wash their hands before they ate bread. But if somebody had a higher degree of ritual impurity, if they had come into contact with something that is come into direct contact with something that is tameh, that is impure, they would have to go to the mikveh. They would have to immerse themselves in a ritual bath. They would go during the day to the mikveh, and then you would have to wait until sunset, until the night fell, until the day was over. Uvo hashemesh v'toher. Once the sun would set, then the purity would take effect. And so the rabbis are telling us that in the same way that the Kohanim, the priests, would have to wait for the sun to set, for the day to end, so too we have to wait for the day to end to read the Shema. In the same way that the Kohanim would have to wait for the sun to set, for the day to end, in order to eat from the sacred food, we too wait until the day to end in order for us to recite the nighttime prayer. And so we read it inside. The rabbis are teaching us another matter along the way, which is Kohanim emos ka'achli betruma. When do priests eat of their teruma? From the time that the sun sets. And this then teaches us the kapara lo ma'akla, that if the Kohen had to bring a sin offering for having become impure, that doesn't stop him. Bringing that sin offering doesn't stop him from being able to consume the sacred foods. He only needs to wait for the sun to set after having gone to the mikveh, and then he can, after having immersed in the ritual bath, and then he can consume the sacred foods. So I think that there's a couple of important lessons in this mystical Talmudic teaching. First of all, it's fascinating that the rabbis of the Talmud bring together the reading of the Shema at the nighttime and the sacred status of Kohanim, of Jewish priests, and specifically of Jewish priests eating sacred food and our prayer in the dark of night. Perhaps what the rabbis are telling us is that a Jew reading the Shema, which essentially means declaring their faith in God during the nighttime, is the epitome of what it means to be a nation of priests and to consume sacred food. And when we speak about the priests consuming sacred food, we're talking about one very specific aspect of the priestly lifestyle. So we know that their priestly lifestyle involves three general themes. There is the priest's role in teaching Torah, the priest's role in facilitating the bringing of sacrifices, and then there is the priestly identity in eating of sacred foods. Let's just separate. We can even say, we could amend the three categories, but let's focus specifically on the priestly duties that are unique to priests. The avodah, the service in the temple, the karbanos, the sacrifices, and the terumos and masros, the matnos kahuna, the gifts of the priests. So the sacrifices would be done uniquely by priests, but they are representing, they're facilitating, or they're acting on behalf of the Jewish people. The karbanos too, the sacrifices too, are often taking the sacrifice, which was donated by a non-priest, and then facilitating the bringing of that sacrifice into the temple. But the consuming of terumos, the consuming of sacred foods, while it is a gift from the non-priest, it is sacred in the most sacred sense. No non-priest has any connection to the teruma, to the sacred foods, once it's been donated. And so the teruma represents the highest place, the highest, you would think that it would be the the avoda, the sacred service in the temple. But actually, the priest's work of eating the teruma represents the most intense. Just decline. It represents the most intense, the most pure place of the Kohen. Okay, so now we have these two seemingly very different ideas: the reading of the declaration of the faith in God in the dark night, and the purest manifestation of what it means to be a Kohen, to be a priest. And so what the rabbis are telling us, perhaps, or one message that we could take from this, is that if we have the courage in a time of darkness, in the nighttime, to declare our faith in God, we are representing and manifesting the highest and purest form of what it means to be a nation of priests. Okay, so